I am not hearing them. Eh? Hello?
No, Sadibe, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we are starting the session now.
Unfortunately, I am not hearing you very well. I don't know why. Maybe it's my new machine.
Okay. All right, we will start. And I think in the background.
Them.
Right. Welcome everyone to the session. My name is Busiso. Can you just give us 1 minute as we sort out a technical glitch, and we should start in a minute. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us today for PAT's Live Forum entitled Untangling Africa's Regulatory Process for Better Health. My name is Sibusiso Tlechwago. I'm the Director for External Affairs for PAT's Africa region, and I'll be moderating the conversation. Before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to share a few logistical details. First, we want to hear from you. And in addition to sharing your thoughts and questions and experiences over the next hour, I also invite you to converse and share online by using the hashtag #PATLiveForum. It's all one word. And also tagging us at PAT through PAT tweets, again, all one word. You see the slide that's displayed. It has the #PATLiveForum and also the PAT tweets. Also, please know that this session is being recorded and will be distributed, especially for those that are unable to join us live today. Also want to say a special thank you to Temtime, a Zebra Technologies company, for their sponsorship support of this event. For more than 40 years, Temtime's partnership with PAT brought the vaccine vial monitor to fruition, and these simple labels have helped to ensure the effectiveness of vaccines that have been delivered to billions of individuals around the world. Finally, I want to thank you all for joining us from all over the world. We have philanthropists, we have government representatives, we've got corporate partners and our peers. We appreciate your interest and participation today as we all work together to harmonize Africa's regulatory processes. As we continue our conversation over the next hour, please keep sharing your questions and comments in this chat. We will be monitoring these channels and saving time at the end of the hour to pose a few of your questions to our panelists. Now, turning to our speakers, we are so honored to be joined by this incredible pair of people who have been vital in the African Medicines Agency development process. Honorable Michelle Sadibe is an African Union Special Envoy for the African Medicines Agency, AMA. We also have Dr. Margaret Ndomondo Sikonde, who is the head of health programs at the African Union Development Agency, New Partnership for Africa's Development, otherwise known as AUDNEPAD. A huge thank you to you all for joining us today. Before we engage, we'd like to share a bit of background about today's conversation. As many of you know, the complex web of regulatory processes across the African continent means it can often take years for a single health product to be approved for use. Unfortunately, these delays hinder timely access to high quality, safe, life-saving vaccines, medicines, and medical devices. In response, the treaty for the establishment of the African Medicines Agency was approved in 2019 to provide a platform for coordination and strengthening of ongoing regional and continental harmonization initiatives. In an exciting new development, just a few weeks ago, about 15 African countries had ratified the AMA Treaty, opening the doors to allow the treaty to formally enter into force. More countries still need to sign and ratify AMA. I'm excited for today's conversation, which will explore what's next for AMA and how it can be leveraged to ensure high quality health products get into the hands of those who need the most when they are needed the most. And with that, I will turn over to our panelists. I'd love to start with you, Dr. Margaret, in terms of framing around AMA. Some countries have ratified and submitted instruments for ratification to the African Union Commission. Some have signed and not ratified, and some have not signed at all. Where is the AMA at, and what's next for the agency? And what are the steps that need to be taken to ensure that AMA is operational? Over to you, Dr. Margaret.
Thank you, Dr. Sibusiso, and thank you, PATH team, for inviting me to take part in this conversation. And thank you all that have taken time to listen to our discussion. In terms of framing the AMA, as you rightly indicated in your opening remarks, as of 12th of August this year, we are at 22 signatories of the AMA Treaty. We have, of course, 15 ratifications, 11 out of which have ratified and deposited the ratification instruments with the African Union Commission. And 4 of them are yet to deposit the ratification instruments. What it means is that it's only until we have the 15th ratification instrument deposited with AUC, 30 days after that, then the African Medicines Agency will come into force. And so we are busy, and of course, I know Honorable Sadibe is also going to allude to this, you know, in terms of really making sure that first we conclude the process of depositing the ratification instruments, but also engaging the other member states that have not either signed or ratified, so that we have the AU member states, you know, signing or ratifying the treaty. Now, what is critical at this point in time is that AUDA NEPAD is working with the African Union Commission and WHO to facilitate the operationalization of the African Medicines Agency. This basically includes working on hosting arrangements based on the countries that have expressed interest to the AUC to host the AMA. So that in itself is a process that requires an agreement first on the criteria for hosting, an assessment of the countries that have expressed interest, and eventually selection of a country that would qualify to host the African Medicines Agency. In addition to that, we are also working on the structure for the African Medicines Agency, but also we're working on staff rules and regulations, and also recruitment of the Director General and staff, so that we'll be in a position to have AMA operational. But of course, at the same time, we are also trying to prepare for the first meeting of the Conference of the Parties to ensure the smooth takeoff, while at the same time, we are also going to continue engaging our AMA envoy, the Honorable Sadibe, to continue working and engaging the remaining member states to ensure that we have all the 55 member states ratify the AMA Treaty. So that's where we are at the moment in as far as the takeoff of AMA is concerned. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Seconda. Turning to you, Honorable Sadibe, you have played a vital role in getting countries to ratify AMA, and you have been very successful in doing so. What are some of the challenges that you faced while engaging and convincing member states to ratify the AMA Treaty? And how can we use these lessons to engage and convince the more than 40 countries that still need to sign? What support is needed to do so? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be part of this conversation, and I want to just add a few words to what Margaret, my sister, just shared. Let me start by saying that the first phase was for us a political phase. It was mainly about building on effort which has been made already by NEPAD, by partners like yours, advocating to bring a sense of urgency and trying to quicken the pace of action. Because in fact, as you know, treaty is certainly one of the most important instrument and difficult instrument to be ratified. So we have been able to bring this sense of urgency and making sure that instead of having one country after another country, we did almost 3 months non-stop. I can say that probably I was with Margaret the most tested COVID person during those three months. But it helped us to really demonstrate that it is a priority for the continent, it is a priority for the leaders, it is a priority for our patients who are waiting to see a new regulatory framework with new standards capable to really help them to get their medicine where they want to be, to get vaccine where they want to be in the good condition. So I want to say that we concluded this trip in Geneva. We managed to have those 15 countries to ratify. And during this process, what I saw is a full commitment coming from political leaders who were seeing really the impact of COVID and also push for emergency procedures. Without an emergency procedure, it would have not been possible to have 15 countries to ratify. What means emergency procedure? You know, to be able to have a treaty ratified, you need to go to the cabinet. You need to make the cabinet accepting the treaty to have a decree which will be going to the parliamentary committee of foreign affairs or health, and then go to the parliament, and then be ratified by the parliament and ratified by the Senate, then go to the constitutional court to look at if it is really legal and it is in harmony with the laws of the countries, and then promulgate into law by the president, and then instrument. You can imagine it is a lengthy process. It is not by hazard if they decided to have 15 only out of 55, because it is a lengthy process. But we managed to have that because they really decide, any country, I think visited country have been deciding to really have an emergency procedures to really cut and go quickly to the parliament, demonstrate quickly that this can be passed as a priority, because you have full document to be ratified or like that. It's a pile of documents in each country. So how to take that from bottom to up, I think advocacy and the work we have been doing help us really to do that one. And I want to say, honestly, this experience has been very useful. We learn a lot, and we are ready to use that experience for the remaining country. But what I'm seeing already is a lot of enthusiasm, because after also we saw big countries like Tanzania and others who signed, and we are seeing more and more demand from Nigeria, from South Africa, from different parts to be able to really think through the process of ratification. So I think for us, that is also a good sign, which is showing that we will be there. Now we have, even this morning, I talked to the foreign minister of Gabon to make sure that they could deposit. I talked to the foreign minister also of No, that has been done already. Benin and Niger, to make sure that they can really quicken the process of depositing the instrument. So I think we will be there, but mainly I will say that what Margaret was saying, that is the most important next step.
All right. Thank you so much for the insights into the process that countries need to do. And I really hope that through the efforts that we are putting, and also out in NEPAD and other partners, we can get more countries to sign, particularly those countries that are regarded as leaders in their regions. Now, the next question that I have for you, Honorable Sadibe, is which countries will be asking, or which people in the continent will be asking, what benefits are there to the 15 countries who have ratified AMA, and what's needed to bring the remaining ones on board?
I think to be honest, during our visit, we realized that okay, we met almost 11 presidents. If you include prime ministers and foreign minister, I think most of the leaders we have been meeting them. But we realized that the value of regulation of it seems everywhere. So it's important. Small country or big countries, they are all convinced today that it is very important that we have a stronger regulatory system. And they start realizing that without this strong regulatory system, we'll not have a well-functioning health ecosystem, without any doubt. So that's the first things. And they know that manufacturing without a strong regulatory system will not be an easy way. And they realize also that it's so important, that came from all the discussion we had, that the existing human capacity and the regulatory skills which are existing in different parts of the world, or continent particularly, Margaret knows that better than me, can be harnessed and harmonized and even mutualized. And today they are seeing a fragmented approach in those different places. So they are thinking also that it is an opportunity for research and development. It is an opportunity for maybe transferring some competencies, improving through training and building capacity, looking on a proper mechanism for building a more stronger biomedical pharmacovigilance system, ethical approach. So I think for me, to be honest, those are the elements which we need to continue to take with us as a strong advocacy element for bringing the others also around the table. And I think, but meantime, what is very important from my point of view is to continue, and I'm convinced on that, to get quickly the 3 others country or 4 to deposit their instrument, so the AMA treaty can go into force automatically after 1 month. So like Margaret said. So for me, that is the point I can say from what we learned and how that could help the others of 40 countries to come. But again, you should never wait until everyone is in the room, like my father used to say, to start convincing few who are already in the room. So you should start also working with them and demonstrate that some low-hanging fruit can be happening, that we can move to second phase, and people certainly will join. I am convinced on that one.
Right. Thank you, Honorable Sadibe. Just listening to you, I think you amplify the fact that the ratification is not just for health purposes, but it cuts across. It's got economic benefits. You touched on manufacturing, you touched on research and development, you touched on regulatory harmonization, you touched on streamlining a fragmented approach in terms of products approvals. I'll pose the next question to Dr. Seconde. I'm hoping you can speak to the relationship between AMA and the regional economic communities and also the national medicines regulatory authorities. What is the role of the RECs and the NMRAs in AMA operationalization, and how will AMA work with these bodies to improve regulatory harmonization across the continent? And also added to that, what is AUDA-NEPAD's doing to ensure that the national medicines regulatory authorities understand the AMA processes and how they can provide meaningful support? Over to you, Dr. Skondo.
Thank you, Dr. Sibusiso. So I think, as we are all aware, the regional economic communities have played a very critical role when it comes to bringing the countries together through the regional platform to harmonize the regulatory standards, technical requirements and regulatory practice. And that has really helped to strengthen and build the capacity of most of the countries across the continent. And basically, this has been done through the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, which basically has been very instrumental in establishing the African Medicines Agency. So there is going to continue that relationship between the NMRAs and the RECs and AMA when it becomes operational. First and foremost, we must know that the main objective of establishing the African Medicines Agency, as Honorable Sadibe has actually said, is to enhance the capacity of the state parties, and of course also the regional economic community, to regulate medical products so that we have safe, efficacious, and quality products circulating in our markets on the continent. That's the core objective of establishing the African Medicines Agency. But also, if you look at the treaty for the African Medicines Agency establishment, it says very clearly that, among other issues, it will coordinate the ongoing initiative for harmonization that are being conducted by the regional economic community. So that means that there has to be a relationship between the different parties from national, regional to continental level. And this can only be done through the existing structures. One thing that we must know is the fact that we are saying AMA will come into force when 15 countries have ratified the treaty and deposited their instruments with their AUC. Now, what it means is that AMA will be responsible to the state parties. And therefore, you have other countries that may not necessarily benefit from AMA because they have not ratified the treaty. And therefore, we need to continue engaging the other countries through the AMRH initiative so that we continue advocating and making sure that we have eventually all the 55 AU member states, are party to the AMA treaty. And what it also means is the fact that there has to be a mechanism for collaboration between the AMRH initiative, the regional economic communities, and the African Medicines Agency. Luckily, the treaty for AMA recognizes that need, and it actually, there's a provision in Article 29 and Article 30 of the AMA treaty for making sure that AMA has a relationship with other states or other organizations and institutions, including the regional economic communities. So what we are doing as AUDA-NEPAD is to continue to play our role in providing both technical guidance and policy advocacy to the AU member states to ensure that they ratify the AMA while we continue to coordinate the MRH initiative. And we have to understand the fact that a decision was made for MRH to serve as a foundation for AMA, and therefore we need to just push on that as we have always been doing. And another thing that we have been doing all along as AUDA-NEPAD is to continue engaging the national regulatory agencies and the regional economic communities so that they are aware, they understand what is needed for them to convince the decision makers, the policy makers, and the politicians to be able to see the value for AMA and engage in terms of making sure that we facilitate the ratification process for the African Medicines Agency. But I think what is very, very important is to know the fact that this process may take time. especially when it comes to getting all the 55 member states to ratify the AMA Treaty. So there has to continue that dialogue and relationship between AMRH, AMA, REX, and the national regulatory agencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Margaret. Yeah, I'll go to Honorable Sadibe, and also just building on what you've just mentioned, Dr. Margaret, in terms of the process can be long. Honorable Sadibe, you've mentioned that you have engaged with several leaders. You mentioned you've engaged with about 11 presidents/ministers or leaders in different countries, amongst others. You've also mentioned the fact that this can be a very lengthy process. You've actually gone through the process in terms of what is needed for countries to be able to deposit. Now, the question I have for you, Honorable Sadibe, which is coming out from the people that are attending this, is in terms of political will, which is important in ensuring that this lengthy process stays followed through and countries do not slack once they start, or countries actually do start at all. What have you found to be challenges, Honorable Sadibe, in your engagements with leaders in the continent when it comes to political will for AMA? Are there any political challenges? Are there any challenges in terms of political will? Over to you. Honorable Sadibe.
Okay, is okay now? So
yes.
I want just to say, let us start by saying that we should not miss the point which is the most important, which one is to make sure that we are trying to prepare ourselves to give to our own communities more equitable access to science and technology, including, of course, like Margaret said, surveillance and monitoring, diagnostic and essential health services. So I think better health for our community, better health ecosystem is the key. That is the ultimate goal. So if that is the ultimate goal, you could not exclude the patient. You could not exclude people who are outside their civil society, group of like yours, who are working every day to make sure that at least we can save life of people, who are advocating to make sure that we cannot be, living in the world where we are faced with vaccine apartheid. So for me, to make sure, yes, Margaret is strong word, but it's true. If you look at what is happening, when people are dying to have only one dose of vaccine in our continent, people are starting already to think how they can live long-term coexistence with COVID vaccine. So COVID and getting COVID vaccine to different type of population. So we need to make sure that it will become quickly a reality, to make sure that we will not lose the momentum, to make sure that what Margaret was just describing could really be, we can move from phase 1, 2, and 3 and continue. We need to have also a social domain. We need to move with a communication system, with advocacy system, which could be also led by, like I said, passion, by civil society, for demanding to make sure that this structure become a reality quickly. I think it's part of the game. You cannot ignore this part. If not, we will miss again the end point, which is to make sure that we can give better health to our people. And of course, bureaucrats will always work with their pace. I could have taken 1 year, 1 year and a half to have 15 countries ratifying, because go to one country, go home, wait for 1 month and go back to a second country, go home and come. So I think the fact that we had almost 18 countries in 2 months and a half have been creating a pressure, have been creating a momentum. I've been creating a buzz. I've been creating a demand. And when I was in Cameroon, they said, what ratified in our region? When you go to Gabon, Cameroon is ratifying. So what is happening? Congo. And so I think it's the same in the North Africa. When we were in Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, it's the same pressure. So I think, I believe that we need to continue to really, how you say that, push for this social advocacy, demand creation, when we are still working on all the technical part. That is my point.
Thank you, Honorable Sadibe. I'll pose the next question to both yourself and Margaret in terms of countries needing to understand more in terms of the ratification process. First, let me start with you, Honorable Sadibe. I mean, you've been going around these countries and you've been doing this during a time of COVID-19. First of all, just a short one, how has that affected the process in terms of reaching out to politicians? In the continent, have you been able to do more in person or virtual? And I'm asking this from the experience that we had with one of the countries where you couldn't come because of COVID-19. But how has that affected the process? That's the first part of the question. Then the second part of the question is, countries need to know the process for signing and for ratifying. And is there any, and Margaret, you can come in as well after Honorable Sadibe, is there any one place where countries can say, this is where we can get the information on the process for ratifying? You mentioned, you did allude to it at the beginning, Honorable Sadibe, but is there any one repository where countries can go and say, this is where the information is? Over to you, Honorable Sadibe.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I personally feel that, of course, COVID context was certainly helping in some way, even though it was complicated to move from one country to another, having a test and showing clearly to us that we were not even harmonized on the price, on which type of test you can have when you're coming, which test you have to have when you're living, in which country, when you're meeting the president, you have to have a test before. So different type of processes were going on there. But I think COVID, the fact that COVID were there, the fact that we were really faced with this dilemma, this fracture between the North and the South, the fact that people were waiting for also vaccine and to provide services to their people, I think that has been also creating a major opportunity for calling for more less dependency, calling for a stronger regulatory mechanism, calling for resilience in our system. I think that, without any doubt, has been a strong point for us to continue to build on what has been done by NEPAD and others. But also, I think it has been good during this process to meet all the regulatory bodies on national level. Margaret was talking about the link between, listening to them, getting first, because our process was very clear, getting first element for my advocacy from those people who were on the ground, who were working on regulatory, listening and learning from what they were telling us as a deficit and what could be the entry point for. And also meeting people who are involved on science, like I said, biomedical vigilance and bioequivalence and others, pharmacovigilance groups and others, ethics groups. So all those different groups we met in each country were also showing us clearly that a lot of work have been done already during the past years. And these works we need to continue to build on and use them as a ground for the next advocacy, because they're also one war influencing the debate in their respective setting. I can see, honestly, what Margaret was saying, is possible for us to now move to phase two. Phase two, by getting more countries, bringing more countries into the process, and also starting formulating better, what will be the AMA in the future, how it will function, what who will be part of this whole process, and what we want to really get. So that is where they have been already, I think, starting for some time. It will be good to see how we can really come with, from my point of view, with a kind of a plan, phase one, phase two, phase three. So I can say 1, 3, 5 years type of a kind of strategic vision plan for what could be AMA, and then trying to have a milestone which will get us where we want, and building on what has been already done. So those are a few things I want to add, but I am very positive that where we are today, we have been able to get in each region, because through our discussion, we said, let us not focus on only one region. So let us have a kind of a typology of region. So now we can say that in each part of the continent, we managed to have countries who have been ratifying already this AMA. So it's important to make that bigger and bringing more and more, already Tanzania who signed, bringing them automatically to quicken the pace of ratification, and trying to add that Kenya, Nigeria, and certainly South Africa and other big countries. So I want to stop there. And again, like I said, I believe that is not issues of big or small country. It is not of issue who ratified or not. It is issues of which type of best regulatory system will put in place, which will help us to protect the poor. I think for me, that is the key which we need to keep in our mind.
Right. Thank you, Honorable Sadibe. Dr. Margaret, I don't know if you want to come in and probably just highlight the key processes in terms of that countries need to do to ratify, or if there is any repository where countries could access information on the AMA process itself.
Thank you, Sibu. So when it comes to signing and ratification, actually we've tried from the onset when the treaty was adopted by the AU in 2019, we actually put in place a number of tools and mechanisms to be able to push for the ratification or signing and ratification process. So we've had to, first of all, have a collaboration between ourselves, AUC, the WHO, and yourselves at PATH, to really work together and see, how best we can, push the advocacy so that countries can see the value for them to ratify the treaty. And I also want to add a voice to say, I think COVID-19 has also helped us to push for this ratification process, because there's been this realization of the problem that countries were facing, because of the supply chain disruptions and the approval processes that countries were struggling with, to say it's best for countries to be part of the, a continental sort of, institutional framework for them to be able to benefit from the value that comes from the AMA process. So that in itself has also pushed for the signing and ratification process. But of course, in addition to that, we have actually had to, AUC, for instance, had to issue the note verbal to all the countries, guiding them on how to sign and ratify. We've also had to issue briefing notes to countries. Sometimes you have to have one-on-one conversation. We also created platforms, with various stakeholders at country levels that require some clarification as to what is needed for them to be able to engage the policymakers and politicians. And but also the regional economic communities have also played a very critical role when it comes to engagement, of countries. And you may recall last year in November we engaged the SADC ministers of health, and out of that engagement we were able to see Namibia signing and ratifying quickly, and eventually we had Zimbabwe also signing. So we've had to use different tools and platforms and processes to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have a repository of documents that one can go and have a look to see what is needed. But these guidance documents are there; they are easily available depending on the need, and then we are very willing to share whoever needs them so that we can use them to continue with advocacy. You may also recall we also did the AMA video that has gone, has been used widely for advocacy purposes. So I think we can share the materials so that we, together with all the key stakeholders. I know, for instance, PATH, IFPMA, the Alliance for African Medicines Agency has been also established through the leadership of IAPO. So all these partners and players are very critical in advocating for the ratification of the AMA Treaty, and we just have to embrace and push with that.
Challenge, but thank you for. Hi, Margaret. I think we lost you just towards the end. Probably it's my internet, which that is.
The last part I was actually saying the need for collaboration, between the various players and parties, and I was also talking about how we have engaged the IFPMA. This is the International Federation for Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, PATH as and other a patient organization like IAPO, International Organization for Patients, International Association for Patient Organization, IAPO. So, and they've actually formed AMATA. This is the Alliance for African Medicines Agency, which is also another tool for advocacy. So all I'm saying is that we need to use whatever platforms that are there to reach out to countries so that they see the value for them to ratify the AMA Treaty.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Skonda. Now, I'll pose a follow-up question to yourself. In the beginning, you gave an update of where we are in terms of AMA, and you mentioned the recruitments that have already started. I think the first question is just a basic question: are there any countries that have shown interest in hosting AMA? And then the second follow-on question on that is in terms of timeline, when do you see AMA being operational?
Thank you, Sibusiso. So in terms of expression of interest to host the African Medicines Agency, a number of countries did actually express that since the beginning. I'm talking about 2019 there. But what has been decided by the African Union Commission is to say we need to give a fair chance to all the AU member states. So what has happened is to issue an expression of interest to with a very clear criteria of what is needed for a country to be able to qualify to host the AMA. And so we're busy working on that. Once the criteria has been finalized, it will be published, and then countries can equally be given a chance to express their interest, and then an assessment will then be conducted by a team of experts to determine to what extent they qualify, and then after that, then hosting countries will be selected. So this is the process that we are busy working on.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. Maybe then one more question for you. Currently, the continent faces challenges, particularly around substandard and falsified vaccines and medical products. How do we see AMA helping to overcome this challenge, or how does AMA coming in help the continent to overcome this challenge of substandard and falsified medical products?
No, it's true that Africa does face a challenge in terms of substandard and falsified medical products. We are especially taking into account the various porous borders that we have on the continent. And basically what we see is the fact that no single country will be able to solve this problem alone, and therefore the need for countries to work together. And you may recall, for instance, the WHO report in 2017 that estimated that, in as far as substandard and falsified medicines is concerned, 10% of all products that are circulating in the market are falsified. And there's also another report that was talking about the systematic, it was a systematic review that was done in 2013, which actually was talking about median prevalence of 28.5%. And so if you look at these studies, it's clear that we have a situation that we need to address. Now, what we see AMA, coming to address is that, it will continue to, work on collaboration with the regional economic communities and the national regulatory agencies in terms of facilitating identification of the falsified products and also facilitate information sharing across countries. And basically, this will be a carryover from the existing AMRH initiative, where we are already working on regional post-marketing surveillance programs that are helping countries and regions to identify these products and take the necessary actions. But also we know AMA, when it comes into force, will continue to work with the regional economic communities to coordinate also joint operations that in some regions are already happening. For instance, you have a situation where, in East African community, which if I may give that example, where they would bring the law enforcement agencies, the regulators together to do joint operations to be able to detect and, curb substandard and falsified medical products. So we hope that once AMA comes into force, it will provide, a better environment for legitimate manufacturers and pharmaceutical dealers to flourish and improve, local manufacturing of quality products across the continent. So it is going to play a very, very critical role. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Skonda. I think one more question for both panelists is, Honorable Sadibe, you mentioned, amongst other things, when you spoke about AMA, you mentioned manufacturing, you mentioned regulatory harmonization, but you also mentioned research and development. The question I have is how, we have seen with COVID-19, the importance of structured R&D ecosystem. And the question that's coming from the audience is, what would be the role of AMA in strengthening regional R&D capacity? And that is for either of you. You can respond. Maybe Margaret, you can go first if you have a response in terms of how would AMA help to strengthen.
Yes, I can hear you. I have you. No, I want just to add to what Margaret said, that in fact, I think AMA could also help to coordinate information amongst different regulatory bodies and help through that one to make sure that this all cross-border, movement which are existing in terms of fake drugs and others, to really better organize the information which will be shared quickly and help to act on it. But out of that one, I think it's very important to think about one thing. It's not just about health, which is very important. It's about also economic issue. And that is the point of your person who asked the question. It's an economic issue because if you look at just last year, we are talking about almost $1,400 billion, which is, the market of medicine. So it was $1,400 billion. Out of that, Africa is representing 0.7%. So it's very important to understand that it will not happen if we don't also not Africanize our research and development. And I personally feel that AMA can play a critical role by creating a platform for all those great minds, young people who are trained, who are abroad, who are not necessarily in the continent, but some who are in the continent, and attract them and make sure that at least our research and development will address also our priorities. If you look at malaria have been discovered 141 years ago in Constantine in Algeria. So today we're still struggling with how we will have a proper drugs, how we will have a vaccine. So research and development, Africanizing research and development, and that doesn't mean that cutting completely the bridge between us and others. No, is making sure that we will really take advantage of also AMA to give areas where a proper research should be done, how we can attract our best mind, how we can create a platform to promote that. I'm convinced AMA can play a critical role on that one, and it can really be a movement which will help us also to focus a little bit on our what is our agenda for research in line with our priorities, in line with our disease, in line with, I want to just add that to the point. Economic, but also attracting our young people, making sure that we can create jobs, but also changing completely our procurement system, making sure that we can have a better platform for tapping on the knowledge base which is existing and sometimes scattered.
Thank you, Honorable Sadibe. I do realize all the points that you've made speak also onto how AMA strengthen the health systems in Africa. Now, before we close, I'd like to give each one.
In there just on the research and development point, please. I just wanted to add on to that, because I think it's very important to recognize the fact that we are already doing some work in trying to bring together the research community, the scientists, the academic institutions, and the regulators, so that they are able to facilitate research and development in a way that is meaningful. First, of course, we have a platform already that was created way back in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, through the Scientific Conference for Medical Products Regulation, where all these players come together to discuss issues of common interest. That's one. But secondly, currently, Africa is embarking on the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing framework. This is the PAVM, which the AU and in collaboration with the Africa CDC is coordinating. And we have a strong stream of work on regulatory system strengthening and research and development, which we are busy working on to see how we can facilitate manufacturing of vaccines and other products. And so I wanted to say that AMA, when it comes into force, it will build on these initiatives that we are already establishing, so that eventually we see value in terms of advancing research and development on the continent. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Segonda. I do realize that we are almost on time. It's such an insightful and interesting conversation. And before we close, I'd love to request each one of you to give us or just share one key takeaway that you'd want to leave us with. What is that one thing that you want us to take away from today's conversation? And I'll start with you, Margaret. The one thing that you want us to take away.
I think for me, what is key is to have that realization that, the African continent is on the right path in terms of addressing its own, health agenda. And what I'm seeing happening on the continent now is really the issue around collaboration between the different players, the institutions and organizations which initially were not talking to each other, but now having this COVID-19 pandemic has really made us to wake up and realize that we need to advance our own development agenda by working together and making sure that we develop and we produce and we make sure that there is access to good quality, safe and medical products to our own population. That's what I think is my takeaway from this conversation. AMA will play a very critical role in that regard.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sekonda. Honorable Sadibe, one thing that you'd want us to take away from the conversation?
I think, first of all, thank you very much for giving us this platform to have this conversation. I'm always learning a lot from Margaret, she is in this process for so long. But I want to say, again, listening to you, hearing the questions coming, the challenges are therefore political and ethical. We have to really be very clear. If we don't have the possibility to better use our common knowledge for the common goods, for making sure that those people who are marginalized and don't have access to services because of the regulatory system, because the standard setting, because the lack of harmonization, because the fact that we are not producing enough medicine, 3% of the medicine we are consuming, because I think it will be difficult, because we will be faced with what I personally feel with this permanent dependency vis-a-vis exterior or whatever you say, that vis-a-vis abroad, and which is not sustainable. So that's why I'm happy, like Margaret said, that this space being created give us opportunity to bring politicians, technical people, regulators, and others who are involved in this discussion to start thinking about how to build a strong regulatory system for the continent. Thank you very much. Still political and ethical issue for common goods, for people who are suffering.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sadibe, for those concluding remarks. Now, for our participants or the people that have joined the call, we will be we'll be sending out, first of all, a recording of this conversation. It will also come with links to resources on AMA. We realize from the questions that there's quite a number of people that have requested for more resources on AMA. Now we are almost on time, and I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. I'd like again to take this time to thank our phenomenal speakers for the insights and dedications that they have shown, not only today, but they continue to show in Untangling Africa's regulatory processes through the implementation of AMA. And to those of you that are tuning in from around the world, a huge thank you for myself from Perth, and also from all the people that are working on AMA for your participation and your thoughtful questions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all of them, but we hope that you will continue to engage with us on our social platforms and our official channels. And with that, we are on time. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Very much.